Hello, hello, hello. First of all, big shout out to Howard. He actually shared this joke in chat the other day, and I thought it deserved a wider audience. But remember, I stole this from Howard. So, boy, I just went blank. Honest to God, I never do. That was a joke. But all of a sudden, I got this other joke in my head. Okay, I got it. Age is a bitch, folks. But then again, so is nerdy. I thought for sure she'd pop in right then. Anyway, three guys are walking down the beach together. A black guy, a Mexican, and a white guy. And they come across this old bottle, kind of weird looking, pick it up, and they are brushing the sand off of it and shaking it. And a genie comes popping out. And he's like, "You have freed me. For a reward, I will give you each one wish." And he looks at the black guy and he says, "What would you like?" And the black guy says, "How about, could you create a paradise planet for all the black people on earth and take us all there and we can live happily amongst our own people?" The genie goes, "Done." The guy disappears. And next, the genie looks at the Mexican and he says, "What would you like?" The Mexican goes, "I think that was a pretty good idea. How about a paradise planet for all the Latinos?" Genie goes, "Done." Mexican disappears. He looks at the white guy and says, "What would you like?" The white guy says, "All the black guys and Mexicans are gone?" Genie says, "Yes, they are." The white guy says, "I'll have a Coke." Insert laughter there. I'll tell you the other one that came to my mind and was confusing me. And I don't think I told this one before. I saw it somewhere recently. The three women, best friends, go on a car trip together. And they're in an accident. All three die. And they show up at the pearly gates. St. Peter comes out and says, "Welcome. All three of you have lived good lives. You deserve to come to heaven. And I just want to say, heaven is a happy place. You'll have no worries here. But we only have one rule: don't step on a duck." And the women thought, that's a little weird. St. Peter opens the gate. They go in. And they see there are ducks walking all around heaven. Well, after about an hour of walking around looking things over, one of the ladies steps on a duck. Pretty soon, St. Peter comes walking along, and he has got the ugliest guy you've ever seen with him. This guy's got buck teeth going in three different directions. He's got warts. You're just ugly, ugly guy. And Peter handcuffs him to the lady that stepped on the duck, and he said, "You stepped on a duck. This is your punishment. You two are going to spend the rest of eternity handcuffed together." Okay. So the other two ladies are being more careful, but about 2 days later, another lady steps on a duck. Here comes St. Peter with another ugly guy, uglier than the first. Handcuffs him to the lady, leaves. Now the third lady, she's being ultra careful. She's watching where she goes. She steers away from any of the ducks. If they're in her way, she gently bends over and just shoos them. And on her 1 month anniversary of being in heaven, here comes St. Peter. and he has got this gorgeous man with him. This is a guy that would make Brad Pitt look ugly. And he comes over and handcuffs him to the lady and he leaves. And the lady says, "Wow, wonder what we did to deserve this." And the guy says, "I don't know about you, but I stepped on a duck." You can laugh now. Hello, Nikki.
Ha 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 ha. I figured since you didn't want to get stuck with me alone on Finkel's channel earlier, you could get stuck with me alone here.
Yeah. So what you been up to? I'm surprised Friday night you're usually off with other people.
Hmm.
Maybe it just worked out that way that I saw you a couple of times. You're always on another channel on Fridays.
With Toe for Life. Yeah.
Yeah.
That was just actually trying to help him and Aja earn money so that they can
Mhm.
move. But
Make their move. Yeah.
yeah. No, actually we just came inside after we were outside with the grandkids and messing around in the garden and messing with the beehives and stuff. So I spent all
So
day outside. Somebody should be proud of me. Hmm.
so what's your joke?
A joke?
And you can't just say Dirk. That's too easy.
Oh, damn.
Plus, we don't do gay jokes here.
No, he's not that way. I can guarantee that. Um, I don't. Oh, actually, my son-in-law just told us this one. There's 283 bricks on a plane. One falls off. How many are left?
282.
Okay. How do you put an elephant in a refrigerator?
Okay. I don't know.
Open the door and stuff it in. How do you
Okay.
put a giraffe in the refrigerator?
I know this. Now that you say it, I know this one. Open the door, take out the elephant, and put the giraffe in.
Okay. You're having a party and oh man, I can't remember that part. But something about all the animals are invited. Who doesn't show up? Uh,
Yeah. So it'd
something
be
about
the
the
giraffe.
alligators.
Uh, I was thinking it'd be the giraffe because he's still stuck in the refrigerator or something.
Well, yeah, the giraffe too. And then there's a lady swimming in an alligator infested river, but she doesn't die. And why? I actually had it backwards. The alligators do show up to the party. And the answer to
Oh,
that is because the alligators are all at the
oh,
party.
okay.
All of a sudden, the lady just basically drops dead in the middle of this alligator infested river. How did she die?
It's obviously not going to be something simple like she drowned. Uh, I don't know.
She got hit in the head by the brick that fell off the plane.
Okay. I, I was thinking a minute ago, I thought the bricks on the plane has got to come back in here somewhere.
Yeah, it's just one of them fucked up things. But the funny part of it is when my son-in-law said it, he forgot to say open the refrigerator door. And my grandson was sitting here and after the joke was over, he goes, My son-in-law looked at him and goes, "Did I tell it right?" My grandson went, "Not bad for Alzheimer's. You forgot to open the refrigerator door." So that was actually funnier than the joke.
It's always fun to have a kid tell you how stupid you are.
Mm-hmm.
So I got a couple other favorite jokes. These are two I always like. These are old people jokes, so you'll like them.
Okay.
The one I always liked is two old guys sitting on the porch in their rocking chairs. And as old guys like to do, they are sitting there talking about their ailments and stuff, and they always know when the weather's changing because of their knees, and they just can't get around like they used to. And one of the guys finally says to the other, he goes, "You know what, though?" He says, "I could put up with the bad knees. I could put up with the sore shoulder and all of that. But the thing that drives me nuts is I can't remember for shit anymore." The other guy says, "You know what? I was having the same problem, and my doctor gave me this new medicine. And boy, I'll tell you, I'm as sharp as a what you call it now. My memory is 10 times better." Because his buddy says, "Oh, I got to get me some of that. What's it called?" And the guy goes, "Oh, it's uh, what's that red flower with the long stem and thorns?" The guy says, "A rose." He goes, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, thanks. Hey, Rose, what's the name of my new medicine?"
Uh,
Howard, I started off telling your three guys finding the genie bottle. The other one, another old people joke. Three old widowed sisters living together. And one day the oldest sister sticks her head out the bathroom door and goes, "Hey, Charlotte, Charlotte." And the middle sister goes, "What do you want?" She goes, "Was I just getting in the shower or was I just getting out?" Charlotte says, "I don't know." And she yells down to the youngest sister who's in the kitchen. She says, "Hey, Grace, Grace." And Grace says, "What do you want?" She says, "Was I halfway up the steps or was I halfway down?" And Grace is like, "Oh my God, you two are going to be the death of me. I hope I don't get this way knocked on." There's someone at the door. I got a million of them, folks. I got a million of them.
All right, Howard, what's the answer to your
I didn't see what has 72 balls and fucks old ladies. Yeah, I don't know. I guess you 36 old men. Yeah, that's a good one. I will definitely steal that one too. It's got a little limited. Well, I guess depending on who I'm saying to, I could say screws old ladies.
What do a tick and the Eiffel Tower have in common?
A chick? Did you
A
say?
tick, Tick.
Oh, a tick in the Eiffel Tower. No idea.
They're both Paris sites.
Oh, by the way, we were having thunder and lightning here all day.
Ours started up after like 4.
Although the thing is, it was mostly thunder and lightning. The rain didn't get very heavy.
Oh, we had the thunder and the lightning, but no rain. But an hour away, they got like 2 inches of rain.
I always remember one time years ago, my mother was talking to this friend of hers that lived, well, it's like 4 miles down the road that way. And, and her friend Mary says, "Oh my God, can you believe this storm?" My mother says, "It's all sunny here." She goes, "Oh my God, it's coming down here. Cats and dogs, wind's blowing. It was perfectly fine here." A little bit later, she's talking to my one aunt who lived about 7 miles that way. And the aunt's saying, "What about this storm today? It's, coming down there." It was like on either side of us. They were having bad storms. We were here enjoying an 80-degree day.
Yeah, uh that happens here a lot too.
Yeah, glad I decided to go live. I was just going to record that joke and put it up, and I thought, I might as well just do it live.
Yeah, might as well.
The kind I like is the ones, I have a few of them, and I'm not going to say them now because you'll know there's a punchline coming, but you tell them as a story. So people think
Mhm.
it's like a real thing, and then at the end you go, and then the ocelot bit him on the nuts or something. It's like, geez. Okay, here you go, folks. I will give $5 to the first person that can come up with a good joke that has the punchline and then the ocelot bit him on the nuts.
All
There's
right,
a
now
challenge for you. Oh, there was an old one kind of along those lines. I remember hearing it in the movie. Alice doesn't live here anymore, that later they turned into Alice, where she worked at Mel's Diner.
mhm.
But I remember as her and her son are traveling cross country, and he's telling his mother this joke. And let me think, it's like these guys are out, and I watched this movie 70 years ago, so I'll give you the basics of it. Um, an escaped gorilla. The gorilla escapes from the zoo, and they're out trying to get it. And they have these special hunting dogs. And the thing is, the dogs, of course, gorillas, they're big and strong and stuff. It's hard to get them under control. These dogs, what they would do is grab the gorilla by the nuts, and that would control the gorilla until they could get him tranked and put in a net and all that. So they come across the gorilla, and he's up in a tree. And the one guy says, "You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to go up there and I'm going to shake the tree, and the gorilla will fall out. The dogs can grab him. You guys will trank him, all that." So the guy goes up in the tree, and he's shaking the tree, and he ends up falling out. And on the way down, he's yelling, "Grab the dogs! Grab the dogs!" And what I always liked about that, it's not a great joke, but the mother was like, "I don't get it." And the whole way across the country, he's repeating it to her. Anyway, I just remembered that talking about an ocelot. I haven't had any big power outages here. That one day we were getting just a bunch of off and on ones, which is more annoying than going down for like an hour or whatever,
Mhm.
which actually rarely happens here.
Ooh, we haven't had any power outages lately. Now that I said that, of course, we'll have
It'll be, hey, where'd Nikki go?
yeah.
I was telling somebody today because I told them Howard's joke. And years ago, I thought I should start like a joke diary and just write down every joke I heard.
Mhm.
I think of that periodically, but of course, me being me, I never did do it. It'd be kind of cool now to like have a book with, like close to 60 years worth of jokes, starting with stuff you heard as a kid. And of course, I guess that's
Yeah,
now called
because
the
they
internet.
they would, they would get more sophisticated maybe as you
Yeah, hopefully, yes.
unless you're stuck on telling those, god awful dad jokes.
The best thing about those, usually, they are so stupid, you laugh at the fact that they're so stupid.
Right.
It's kind of like, I think it was me and Ariel were talking the one night about like, we'll call them racial, not racist jokes, where, well, one thing, there's a lot of jokes like that I stopped telling because I noticed some people were laughing at the punchline, where me and other people like me, we would laugh at the fact that anybody would think the joke was funny, if you know what I mean.
Mhm.
When it be something, real stereotype or whatever. Of course, there's always those ones like I just thought of one a mild racial joke like um, if two black guys are riding in a Lincoln together, which one is driving or who is driving rather? The cop.
I almost asked who.
Um,
Um, did you know that French fries weren't actually cooked in France? They were
I believe
cooked in
so.
Greece.
Yeah. Now here's one. Way back in our old TPP days, this one girl came in and she told this. And part of the thing is she's English, because otherwise I'm a little leery of telling this joke, but there's a there's a necessary part to it. It's a little riddle. When two tampons meet on the street, which one says hello first?
That's a good question.
Neither one, because they're both stuck up cunts. And that's like
Uh,
it's pretty much the only time you'll hear me use that word.
right. But I've come to realize that that word is not as offensive overseas as it is here.
Oh yeah, like in England and Australia,
See you next Tuesday.
a lot of women use it the same way women use bitch here. You
Yeah.
know how a lot of women will go, "Yo, bitch, what's up?" And yeah,
So it makes you wonder, why is it so offensive here?
yeah, I don't even know. It's just it always it always bugged me. And I mean, I'm not so offended if somebody calls someone a pussy.
Right.
Why should that be any different? I don't remember what that girl's name was. I told that joke. Seems like it was just something like English girl or something. I used to love to tell jokes like that to my sister because she would pretend that stuff like that would offend her, but it would always surprise laughs out of her.
Right.
Uh, in fact, I'll tell you one that is like, I mean, it's just totally wrong. But a guy is walking down this wooded path holding hands with a little boy. And they're walking down, and the trees are like getting closer, and it's also getting close to the end of the day. And the boy goes, "Gee, it's getting dark." The guy doesn't say anything, they just keep walking along. The kid goes, "It is really getting dark." The guy doesn't say anything, they just keep walking along. Finally, the kid goes, "It's getting so dark, it's kind of scary." And the guy says, "How do you think I feel? I got to walk home alone." Speak, Speaking of walking through the woods, did I ever tell you about the time back when I used to leave the house and actually walk? Um,
You mean you
when I
actually
went
did
over,
that?
yeah, back in like the 20s.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
I shouldn't even say that because we're in the 20s again. Um,
Yeah. Maybe back in the 50s?
but somebody like cross town was having a yard sale, and I went over and I saw they had a good used Eureka there, and my sweeper had just bit the dust. And I said, "How much you want for this?" They said 25. I ended up getting it for 15. Had them plug it in to show that it did work. So I'm walking home with that thing slung over my shoulder, and I decided, because it was a little heavy, take a shortcut through the woods. And as I'm walking through, all of a sudden this like bluebird dove at my head, and I thought, "What the hell?" And I thought, "Oh, maybe I walked by their nest or something." And I'm walking along, and pretty soon a couple other birds dove at me. Now I'm thinking, Alfred Hitchcock. I keep going, and pretty soon it's like a raccoon comes like running right towards me, but he didn't bite me or anything. And so now I'm worried about rabies and stuff. And as I'm walking along, it's like the shrubs are like shaking, and I'm seeing deer and stuff, and all these animals were just like surrounding me. And I hurried up my step, and I finally got through the woods and I got out into the clearing. And I looked back and I could see all these animals back there. And then finally it occurred to me, nature really does abhor a vacuum.
Ha
I'll show
ha.
myself out.
Ha ha. Yeah,
I might
and
have been a little over
when
here.
you said that it was a Eureka vacuum, I
Yeah,
thought you were gonna say that you were glad it was a Eureka vacuum because, Hoover really sucks.
yeah. You'll usually see things like that. They'll say them on various like baseball teams and stuff like that. You'll hear them go, the Pittsburgh Pirates are now being sponsored by Hoover because nobody sucks worse than the Pirates except for Hoover, stuff like that. Kind of
Right.
goes around every year, different teams. Well, we are attracting a crowd tonight.
Now we're up to 3.
Yeah, done worse. Especially considering I was going to log on and tell my joke and leave again.
It's on Chat and Play.
Yeah, I put it on mine and Chat and Play. I figured since it was like Chat and Play um, related. Well, actually, if I think about it, Howard might have told that joke in Finkel's channel.
Oh, okay.
It has 72 balls and screws, old one, and I gotta remember that. So I had a big disappointment today. I saw them advertising the drinks, and I said, "Get me a lemonade and a grape." And when she got here, she said they didn't have any of the grape. I got you 2 lemonades.
Oh, so now you're a sourpuss.
Well, see, I like to take them and mix them half and half. Grape and lemon always go really well together. But it is 0 sugar. So it's probably full of carcinogens, but what the hell?
Right.
How long do I really want to live? Plus, from what I hear, cancer is a great weight loss program. I'm afraid most golf jokes go over my head. I'm not sure of the significance of the one iron. I'll tell you something I have told golfers a couple of times, and it always annoys them. So I'm just saying about, they play a lot of golf. In fact, I think not too long ago I mentioned it to, geez, I get people's names mixed up. Is it Tyrants Beware? He lives like out in Arizona. He's been here a
No,
few times. No,
he doesn't live in Arizona. He lives down south.
okay, I think it was because, anyway, boy, I can't think of who it is, and because I used to watch his stuff a lot. I haven't seen him lately. Who am I thinking of? Anyway, but someone will be talking about golf, and I'll say, I had a rough day the other day. I almost, for the first time in my life, broke 80. And they're usually going, oh, really? That's all, And I go, but on the last hole, I hit the damn windmill. And you usually just see this look of disgust on their face. Oh, you're not going to bother miniature golf.
Well, that's just like asking them why, when they're golfing, they wear 2 pairs of pants, just in case they get a hole in one.
Yeah. I just remembered, I forgot that I was going to dedicate my newspaper thing to Donna today. For some reason, she's a big fan of the newspaper and especially the grocery prices.
Well, um, I can see why people would be interested in the grocery prices just to, because of the differences in the areas and what's actually available in different areas.
And yeah, that's why I'll stick to like brand names
Mhm.
because it doesn't do any good to say, oh, they have Jose's frozen chicken for this price when Jose's a small regional brand. So it's like, but oh, here's Banquet. People can relate to it.
Right.
Oh, something I meant to do. I'm just gonna run Finkel's one show today and see if it comes up with any good clips. It's funny. I set up, I'm not even sure what you call them, rooms or whatever. You know how you could do that now, where you'll set up one for chat and play, one for whatever.
Mhm.
So it'll have like the backgrounds and stuff in. For the last several days, every time I went to do my today in history or something, and I did set one up for history, it goes to my regular channel. Today, when I come in and I'm going to log into just like the regular one, yeah, it goes to another one, another one of them. I forget what it's called. It's like it's like they're just screwing with me.
Oh.
It's easy for you to say.
Yeah.
Well, it always amazes me when I'll do a short and I'll go and look back at them later just to see if anybody has watched them.
Mhm.
And some of those, they get like 1,000 views within a few hours or the first day. And I just don't know how people find them. Because, obviously it's not just people that are subscribed to me and chat and play.
Right. Well, that's because a lot of people get stuck in that quote unquote scroll of doom.
No, that's true. I've been there.
Yeah, so have I. I'll look at, one will pop up on the advertisement, on the homepage, and it's like, oh yeah, let me go look at that. And then I scroll, and then I scroll, and then I look at the clock, and 3 hours have gone by, and it's like, oh, okay.
I remember back before they had that, in the earlier days, get caught in those things where I'd go to YouTube because I'd be trying to remember all the words to a song. And, I'd go on and there'd be, I'd watch Stairway to Heaven. And I'd look over to the side and it's like, oh, look, there's Bohemian Rhapsody. I'm going to listen to that too. And then there'd be something else. And then it'd be like 3 hours later, I'm sitting there thinking, how did I ever get to the point where I'm watching a volcano in Turkey? How did I go from Led Zeppelin? It's like,
Right.
and so that's kind of like what the shorts are now. You just start scrolling down. So I was telling Ariel, there's that one guy, I don't remember his name, but I did subscribe to him. So I remember a bunch of shorts, and he does a lot of like racial type jokes. They're really good. And I was thinking of going and just doing like a whole collage of them or whatever. There's a couple of those comedians. There's another one I can't remember his name. Do you ever see the guy? He's like a redheaded guy. And usually they'll show him interacting with the audience, and he's really
Is
funny.
is it the younger kid and he interacts, like, with the older ladies and says, "Do you have a daughter or a granddaughter my age?"
No, 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 this
Okay.
guy is older. No, yeah. You know, something I've been noticing lately is, and I think they must be post from Nerdy, because I don't know about anybody. I never get notifications on post,
Right.
but they come up, and I've noticed. Because I never think to go and look at people's pages for posts too, but I'll go and I'll hit like on them or whatever, and then I'll notice that they're like a week old or something. Now, Nerdy just shared the video. I guess they're debating this in committee, where Texas is trying to make it a felony to record police.
Yes, actually, someone else was talking about that a few days ago. The bill in Texas was actually introduced in February, and it passed the House and now has to go to the Senate or one way or another. But anyway, right now it's still in limbo because the voting session is, recessed for the summer, I guess.
Well,
But
don't you just love though how they figure we don't care what the Supreme Court has ruled 5 times. We are Texas. We will make a law, and that's what matters.
yeah, let me. Yeah, they're going to make it a state felony, a state jail felony. And I forget
You know,
what the House bill is now.
and the thing is, the only way to fight it, if it gets passed, is somebody's got to have the balls to go and do it and get arrested and spend the next 3 years fighting it.
Exactly. Um, it is House Bill 3565. And let's see. Be it enacted by the legislature of the state of Texas, Section 1 of the Penal Code. They've got a section 38.15B of the Penal Code is amended to read as follows. An offense under this section is a state jail felony rather than a Class B misdemeanor. This act takes effect September 1st of 2025. They have a date for it to take effect, but it's like it hasn't even been voted on all the way.
Yeah. You'd think it would say something like goes into effect 30 days after being signed in to law, you know,
Hmm.
instead of giving it a date ahead like that. You know, I guess they're sure of themselves. Texas, where everybody has a gun, but they're afraid of cameras.
Right. Let's see. Okay. It was filed in February. It was read the first time in the House in March, referred to criminal jurisprudence. In April, it was referred directly to subcommittee. In May, it was scheduled for public hearing. It was also considered by the subcommittee in public hearing, and testimony taken, recorded in subcommittee. But then on May 1st, it was left pending in subcommittee. So if it's left pending in subcommittee, how can it take effect in September?
Yeah. Yeah, because it has to leave the committee, go to the full House, and after it's passed, if they've made any kind of amendments on it, then those amendments have to be run by the other house to come up with the wording that they both like, and then it's got to be signed by the governor. So, yeah,
Right.
that seems a kind of a quick.
And then, of course, the fiscal note to the bill. They're saying, in reference to the House bill, that as introduced, the bill would increase the penalty for the offense of interfering from a Class B misdemeanor to a state jail felony. But it is assumed that any impact on state correctional populations or on the demand for state correctional resources would not be significant.
Hmm.
And it is also assumed that any fiscal impact to units of local government associated with enforcement, prosecution, supervision, or confinement would not be significant. So is this bill just being introduced to try and scare people to not use their
Yeah,
rights? Yeah, it hasn't even been voted on.
well, it was voted on in the House, right? Because otherwise it wouldn't have been sent on to the Senate.
Well, and I don't think it was even sent to the Senate. This
Oh,
is all in the House. It's pending in subcommittee in the House. although they do have a Senate bill that looks like it's the same thing. Let me look at the latest. Aha. They have a House bill and a Senate bill.
No,
The Senate bill is 1208. The House bill is 3565, I think. The Senate bill was passed April 15th, referred to the House on April 17th, and referred to criminal jurisprudence committee report sent to calendars. So once again, this one was also read the first time on February 28th.
wonder if they introduced it in both to try to speed things up.
That could be, but they are both the House bill and the Senate bill are left pending in subcommittee. No, nerdy, the language is exactly the same. The guy out of Galveston is Harvey Freebird, I believe. There's also Galveston Transparency.
And of course, Carolina, Fort Worth.
Yeah,
Freebird.
yeah, Carolina, Fort Worth, Manuel Mata, Harvey, Galveston Transparency, I can't remember. Ninja News Now, Ninja, Good Citizen News.
You know, it's too bad that other place that you were associated with, not that place, but the other place, had the problems it had, because you guys had some good discussions on there. Like I remember that it seems like that Galveston guy was on there the one time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we were doing I mean, we were doing what we needed to do, and people just didn't like my idea of not discussing an open case
Yeah, yeah,
and
especially
giving
not
legal
in.
advice.
Yeah, I remember that. And you can discuss a case without going into detail. Just say, "Oh, hey, did you see somebody in Alabama now? They got arrested for filming outside of a prison." And just sort of not get into, well, that means he should do this and they should do that, and.
Mm-hmm. Nerdy, the one that got thrown in jail, are you talking about Sam? I believe his name is. Um, I think he is. I think I've seen him maybe a month ago. If if we're thinking about the same person.
Oh, so what happened with that New York guy again?
David, New York, New York. This one
Yeah.
actually, he was covering a Palestinian protest, I think, and um, I don't know. I didn't see it, but supposedly a bike cop pushed him down, kicked him in the ribs, messed him
Mm.
up. They threatened to take him um, to Bellevue as an EDP, emotionally disturbed person. Um, because he kept saying, people get a hold of I am God. So they were, thinking he was emotionally disturbed because they thought he was saying I am God.
Yeah.
Um, et cetera, et cetera. The last that I heard, and it was actually on his live because it stayed live
Mm.
even afterwards. They put it in a bag or something. The last I heard, it sounded like they did actually take him to the hospital, and they did say Bellevue. So, but you know how the gurneys now are electric. When they pull them out of the ambulance, they push the button and the legs come down.
Okay.
That's what it sounded like to me, because you heard the backup beeper, and then you could hear the doors open, and then you heard it like click, and then you heard the machinery running to lower the legs.
Yeah, I saw Jens doing a thing the other night on him, and I clicked on it, but there wasn't like any information being related at the time. Just
Yeah,
sitting
I
there
know.
watching, so I didn't bother sticking around. But yeah, it was one. I'll say one thing, and it shouldn't matter, but I have noticed that David New York can have a mouth on him.
Yeah,
And like I said, it shouldn't matter, but why agitate the cops?
right. And that's the whole thing is there's so many people who are now going out and doing it just to agitate, just to get the
Yeah,
reaction. And that's not how it should be.
nope.
You
And
just
then,
go out, you do your thing. If they throw a fit, you say, you know what, I'm allowed to do this. When the cops show up, be professional.
yeah, you don't have to kiss their ass or bow down to them, but there's no reason to stand there calling them names or whatever. And of course, this sort of thing all falls under the do as I say, not as I do
Right.
rules because
And I'll admit it even with me, it falls under the do as I say, not as I do, because I have had interactions where I have had a mouth that will not shut up. I started out civil, but when the officer didn't want to listen to me and whatever, it was like, okay, fine, here you go. Boom. It was.
yeah, I watch some of those guys like Finkel, um, Jeff Gray, even Long Island, who I sort of go back and forth on, but the way they can stand there and remain polite to sheer stupidity.
Yeah, and I do have to say that that interaction where I got mouthy was I was personally invested in it. It was with my neighbor lady, the elderly
Um,
lady that the daughter kicked out of the house. The the daughter had served her a 15-day notice to vacate, and we told her she doesn't have to leave um, until the judge says, until you actually go to court. Well, she had gone up to visit her daughter and was gonna come back and get some more of her stuff 3 days before the 15-day notice was up. They had the officer come over here and actually watch them put padlocks on stuff and lock her out of the house. And I was like, "No, they're wrong. They can't do that. That's elder abuse. That's, blah, blah, blah." And the cop goes, "No, they own the property." And I said, "It doesn't matter." And him and I went round and round, and I did film it, and I took it up to the chief of police, and I said, "I've talked to her about this, and you better be glad that, she's just wanting to be done with it, because with me having this on film, you do realize that this officer has now cost the city a lawsuit." And, he watched it and he goes, "You are absolutely correct." Uh, you know, and the chief had already talked to the daughter and told the daughter that they couldn't do that, not until the judge orders it. And, uh, you know, the the chief flat out said, "If she's here and she wants in, go ahead and get in any way you can." I'm like, "Okay, go kick the door in." I said, "Okay, we will." We did. And the daughter showed up, within 5 minutes, and the chief was there, and the daughter got out of the car and started, "Yip, yip, 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 yip," even worse than me. Sounded like a damn chihuahua. And the chief looked at her and said, "Shut up, get back in your car and go." "Well, I'm gonna have my lawyer, blah, 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 blah." And he goes, "Okay, go ahead." But yeah, I did film it because of the situation, but, and then I did tell the chief, "Hey, this is deprivation of rights under color of law. This is a lawsuit." And he goes, "You're absolutely correct." I said, "Okay, then just be glad she's just ready to be done with it. She just wants to get the rest of her stuff."
Yeah, you got to wonder about people. God. And nerdy, I didn't like Direct D rather. First time I saw him, he just rubbed me the wrong way. That was long before his whole thing with Chris and all that. And I found Chili annoying too. I'd see him a couple times. He'd say to the cops, "I'm a constitutional," I just lost the word. he kind of it's like he was trying to scholar. I'm a constitutional scholar. It's like, yeah, he thinks a lot of himself. And then that was another one of those things where, again, when the judge gave him double the sentence that prosecution was waiting for in that, and I thought, yeah, we are supposed to have free speech and stuff, but it's still kind of stupid to talk like that in a courtroom.
Thank you. Yeah, I mean, okay, yes, we have free speech, but there is time, place, and manner. And, you know, you got to have some sort of respect. You know, whether you like the person or not, you have to, I guess, respect the laws
Yeah,
and and the decorum that's needed.
you know, it's kind of like something you may have heard before, an old military saying, you respect the rank, not the man.
Mhm. Mhm. And the funny thing is you've got all these, you know, wives who are like, "Well, do you know who my husband is?" You know, because of that saying, "Respect the rank, not the man." Well, do you know who
Yeah,
my husband is? And every time I've heard somebody say that, I just wanna look at them and go, "But you know what? You weren't issued in by the government to your husband."
yeah, yeah, that doesn't make you anything. By the way, everybody, have I mentioned tonight, thank me for my service.
And we were
I,
doing so good.
and I kind of have this thing with veterans. Trying to think of the word I wanted, but it's like a two-sided thing. I mean, my father was in World War II, uh, so were a couple of my mother's brothers. Had people in Korea and Vietnam. You know, my mother's one brother got a Silver Star. My father's father got a Silver Star in World War One. So, you know, we've always been a respect the veteran kind of a family. But on the other hand, yet that doesn't mean you've earned a second vote or whatever. You know,
Right.
you're still a regular person. It's like, yeah, we respect what you did, but you can still be an asshole. And I keep seeing, you know, all these channels that we know of where they'll talk about, well, we support what they're doing because they're a veteran. It's like, no, support what they're doing because what they're doing is good. You know, don't, well, I remember back with Vegas Phipps' um, soulmate. What did he call Perfect Soulmate? And he had that bad book he had sold. And then, like a lot of veterans were buying his book just because he was a veteran. It's like, okay, if that's what you want to do, but just because he's a veteran doesn't mean he wrote a good book.
Mhm. No, and I agree with you, okay. Not that I was ever actually in the military, but I grew up around it. I was married into
Yeah,
it, blah, blah, blah. And yes, I respect veterans. I'm glad that they did what they did, that they did, you know, to give me the freedom to run my mouth the way that I can. But, like I tell my dad all the time, "Yes, you're a veteran, but you're still the biggest asshole I know." And he goes, "I
Well,
know."
well, he is a Marine, right?
Yes,
Yeah, so right, it's redundant to say asshole.
I know.
Let's, the thing that gets me too is this whole. I fought for that flag. I fought for your right to speak out. I fought. No, you didn't. Depending on what it was, you fought because the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor and you wanted to go get some payback. You fought because they destroyed the World Trade Center and you wanted to go get some payback. Or you fought because the military was your best job opportunity at the time. Very few people, I would think, sign that paper and say, I'm going off to defend the First Amendment. You know what I mean?
Right, right. They don't think of it like that. They think of it, once they take that oath of protect the serve and protect the Constitution,
Yeah,
blah, blah, blah. It's the Constitution. The Constitution equals America, which, the flag stands for America. They don't sit and think, well, no, I signed up for the service because I'm going to break it down to your First Amendment, your Second Amendment,
yeah.
your Fourth Amendment, whatever. It's a whole conglomerate. But now that they're out and they are seeing all of these people, the First Amendment auditors, uh, I forget what they're called, but the Second Amendment people who, use their Second Amendment, it's like they pick and choose
Yeah.
which amendment they fought for.
I just saw a guy again yesterday or maybe the day before. I hadn't heard anybody say it in a while. He asked the cop if he knew what the Third Amendment was. And I think that's stupid. And, I'm a guy that at one time I could have recited the entire Bill of Rights to you off the top of my head. Can't do that anymore. But, I didn't need cameras and the internet to become a supporter of the Constitution and all that. But that's a meaningless amendment. To ask them what the Third Amendment is, that's like a gotcha
Mhm.
question that really doesn't mean anything because nobody, I don't know, when's the last time a Humvee is pulled up at your house and they said, oh, yeah, these two soldiers are living with you now. Just,
Yeah, you know, however, if things keep going the way that they're going,
yeah,
that's just my personal opinion. I think we're going to end up having a civil war. And again,
it'd be awful hard to tell the difference between the sides this time.
hmm But anyway, for a 5-minute thing, you've been going for an hour and 20 minutes.
Yeah, I like impact media nerdy, but I also kind of haven't been watching them as much because I swear sometimes they put out 3 videos a day, and there's a lot of them anymore. I like them, but I don't watch them all the time because it's almost, well, I think saying this the other day, it's kind of like watching the Hallmark Channel.
Mm-hmm.
You know what's going to happen, you know? A lot of times I watch like some of the ones that I like, and they'll put the sort of preview thing at the beginning that'll show somebody in their face saying, you can't be doing this here or whatever. And it's like, I'll watch that part of it and be okay. I know what the whole video is going to be about.
Yeah.
But to get back to what we were saying a long time ago, yes, I do not like anybody who purposely agitates just to get a good video. And they're the ones that can make it look bad for the other people that are out there trying to do it right.
Exactly.
Yeah, Alaska's kind of its own world too. I think even more so than Texas. They just don't get the publicity about it.
Well, that's because they want to be left alone.
Yeah.
So why should they advertise that they're that way? Just leave us alone. Let us do our own thing up here, and everybody will be happy.
So, and I don't know if this, I could have heard it wrong or whatever. Nerdy could probably correct me. But I saw a thing the one time in Alaska, people that have like a cabin way out there in the outback, they leave, when they're not there, they leave the door unlocked in case somebody is like lost out there or whatever, they're stuck in a blizzard or something, that they can find refuge.
I've heard that too. Now, whether that's a thing that used to happen and not so much now, or if it still happens.
Hey, I never lock my doors, but I don't think anybody wants to find refuge here.
I don't lock my doors either, but I don't think anybody would want to walk in with, the dogs barking at them and sounding like they're going to rip their arms off and beat them with it. But then, once you're in there, oh, here, let me show you where all the stuff is, and we'll let you carry it out.
First, let me show you where she hides the snacks.
Uh-huh.
And then
That'd
rub
be
my
the
belly a little bit, and I'll show you where the jewelry is.
Yep. That's exactly how these guys are. As long as it's not storming. If it's storming, they're trying to get in your lap. 100-pound lap dogs.
Yeah. Was it your dogs that one night that when my fire siren went off,
That
they all
howled.
went to the door. Yeah,
Yes. Well, because we have the same thing, the fire siren, and I don't they howl when ours goes off.
I don't know why they have not phased those out because I know, like, at least around here, oh, probably 20 years ago or more, every, and we're volunteer companies, but every active fireman had a pager that would
Mhm.
go off. And now I'm sure they probably just have the app on their phone. I don't know why they should save that siren for like a civil defense thing to get people's attention if there's a tornado coming and stuff like that.
Well, ours is a volunteer also, and they do have pagers. I don't know about an app on a phone or anything like that. Um,
Yeah, I don't know
but
how.
I
I
think a
know
lot
you
of it
can go ahead.
I think a lot of it, though, is the fact that the fire sirens, or whatever you wanna call call them, are mostly in smaller towns, and it's
Yeah,
like, "Here's the sign, everybody go look and see what's going on so you can gossip about it."
you know, but there's definitely apps you can get on the phone. Maybe they wouldn't work as well for the guys because maybe it doesn't like have a beeper notification or something. But when I first got involved with the fire company, um, just like in my lifetime, the way things have changed, it used to be that there was a guy up the top of town who was a ham radio operator. He was a paraplegic. He had gotten polio when he was a kid.
Mhm.
And so then, if somebody made a call, then they'd call the county, and then the county would call him. I think that's what I don't think it was radio. Yeah, I think or no, they must have radioed him. Why else did I bring up the ham thing? They would radio him and tell him what it was. Then he would call the funeral home because the funeral home, those people were there 24 hours a day. And there was a button in the closet there that they would hit, and it would, um, trigger the siren. And then when the guys got to the fire hall, the phone would be ringing, and you'd pick it up, and Mr. Heath, the funeral guy, would say, "You got a structure fire at 112 whatever street, whatever it was." And the bad thing about that is, like you were saying about everybody, then it gets their attention and stuff.
Mhm.
I can remember being the first one in the hall a couple of times, and I'd walk in, the phone would be ringing, and I'd pick it up, and some idiot would go, "Where's the fire at?"
Yeah.
And I'd say, "Well, we don't fucking know because somebody's got our phone tied up." You know, I was always polite that way.
But it's, not only is it, like I said, a call to all the gossips and everything, but it's, maybe keeping things the way they used to be. Why change? It worked for so long.
Mm-hmm. One of the bad things about it, and it's like, well, it's just certain people. Why care? But you get these like neurotic people,
Mm,
and the
mhm.
fire whistle blows, and the fire truck leaves town, and they see it makes a right at the light. And yes, we have a light. And they go, "Oh, they went that direction. My daughter lives 2 miles in that direction. I hope they're not going to her house, and they get all excited for no good reason.
Yeah. And see, we're the same way. We have a flashing light in the middle of town. That's it.
Uh,
And, fire truck turns left. It's like, up, they're headed to the nursing home. If it turns right, well, yeah, we got to get in the car and follow it. Got to go see what's going on. Or if it goes straight.
so everybody's only getting 2 weeks worth of medication instead of a month's worth. All my medications, you get 3 months worth, and usually, and most of them are auto renewed, so that you actually get 9 months, before you have to worry about them.
I'll
But then
see, my
again, since I
insurance
take them,
company won't pay for 3 months at a time.
yeah,
Yeah, even though they're all generic, I have to call every month and get it refilled. And it's like, really?
when I imagine Nerdy is getting more serious stuff than I am.
Yeah.
See, I don't even have to call to get them renewed. Whenever it runs out, they contact my doctor. Because, mine are all more basic stuff than that. For some reason, the only one that will not automatically renew is my blood thinner. I don't know why.
Coumadin?
Eliquis. I used to have Coumadin.
Okay. Probably because Eliquis is a newer medicine.
Maybe.
It's not one that's been around forever, like Coumadin or warfarin.
Eliquis is interesting, though. When I still had a cardiologist, he put me on it. You know, you take you take 2 pills a day, no matter who you are. And it
Okay.
doesn't matter what your age is, what your weight is, or anything like that. And they don't do that thing. I can remember when I was on the Coumadin, and it was what was it, like
Pro time. You had,
monthly?
yeah.
Yeah, and get a call where they'd say like, you know what, only take a half a pill today, and then go back to the regular tomorrow, or take 2 pills the next couple of days and go back to your regular.
Yeah.
It was always being adjusted. Yeah. I have practically a drawer full of furosemide, which is the generic for Lasix. I don't know how it happened, but I could supply somebody's fluid pills for months.
I don't know how it happened, but somebody has enough metformin that he doesn't need to have it refilled for a year.
Hey, I take that one too. I am lucky. All my pills are zero copay. I remember a couple of years ago now, Barb was talking to our one cousin, and she was talking about her sister, and she was on some kind of a pill that her copay was $5,000 a month.
Mm-hmm.
And she was just lucky because she married a guy from an old money family, so she had the money in the bank to do it. But how many people could pay 5,000 a month? Well, nerdy, you really brought us down. We started off with jokes.
Uh,
It's all your fault.
somewhere in bumfuck Iowa. You know, I might know where that place is. It might even be just right around the corner, 3 hours away.
I'm not even sure what the return address is on mine. The company is Cigna, except, well, they call it Express Scripts now. I never really took any notice of where they ship out of.
The main fulfillment center is in St. Louis, but they do have other fulfillment centers.
The nice thing about that auto renew thing is I don't have to worry about remembering to do it,
Right.
because otherwise then it's like, oh, I have not taken my Eliquis in a week. I really should call them up to get that redone.
I write mine on the calendar.
I doubt if I ever told you about. I got a call one time from some nurse, and it was like 9 o'clock in the morning, and my brain doesn't start to work at all until at least noon.
Mm-hmm.
But she said she was from the. I don't know. She had some kind of a fancy name for whatever, like committee or whatever they call them. Like they'll have like um cardiac units and whatever, and it'll be like a group of nurses or whatever that look at your stuff and say, oh, well, they should be taking this drug. Anyway,
Mm-hmm.
she said that they wanted me to go on a statin, which is a cholesterol thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, oh, okay, well, you guys have the information for my pharmacy. And they sent the stuff to me. And after, I woke up on that, I thought, wait a minute, my cholesterol always measures good. I always get blood work twice a year.
Right.
And my cholesterol, that's why something I inherited from my mother. Her cholesterol was always really good. And I like because people look at me and go, oh, his cholesterol must be 5,000. But anyway, I got the stuff and I never did take it because I was having a doctor's appointment in like a month and I waited. And I said to her about, they sent me this, but I wasn't sure if I should take it or not because my cholesterol is always good. Have I mentioned that? And she like looked at my, you know, whatever, my test results, and she said, Yeah, actually, in your case, it could be bad because it would run your cholesterol too low. And I thought, so why is some nurse sitting somewhere in an office, probably off in, Chicago or something, not even in my local doctor's office, and deciding I needed a pill
Yeah.
anyway? One of my favorite things is when I'll see some new doctor or something for some reason, which I haven't had to in a while, but they'll say to me, well, you're overweight. And I'll be
Duh.
like, I'm like, really? Nobody's ever told me that. Thank you, doctor. Thank you. Yeah, your medicine's probably coming from China, nerdy. I said that about China, then I noticed the next two comments they were saying the same stuff. Oh, now I see Howard brought up black market. Now, damn it, Howard, we don't like to go racist here. You know those things were outlawed back in the Civil War. No matter how Nikki feels about it,
Yep.
that will never go away.
I know.
That was too perfect of a line.
I know. The thing is it just,
Yeah,
I I was just talking, bitching and moaning, and it just boom, there it was. And of course, everybody caught it because Nikki doesn't say shit like that.
well, it was, and is funny because everybody knows it's like far from the truth. You know what I
Right,
mean?
right. Well, that's just like Toe for Life. I forget what he was talking about, but I said something and he was like, "Okay, guys, we get to celebrate. We got Nikki to cuss." And I'm like, "Oh, whoops."
Meanwhile, Dirk's back there going, "Yeah, you should see her at home."
Right. No, we really don't cuss that much at home. Only when, we're talking to the dogs, and it's mostly like, "Quit being an ass,"
Yeah,
or "You're being a stupid fucktard." But, I mean, we don't really the F word is not something that comes out of our mouth on the
the
regular.
thing, the thing that gets me is that there's a lot of people who just cannot change the way they talk in whatever circumstances they're in at the time. It's
Mhm.
like if you're a construction worker or something, it sounds perfectly natural to be saying, "Oh, the effing boss wants me to take this MFing thing and do this effing." It's like, yeah, that sounds natural. But then, you don't go to church with your wife on Sunday and say, "Oh God, it's not Father Bill this week. It's that effing bishop. He's going to be forever." And you know what I mean?
Right.
And I really hate when when I'll see a parent yelling at some little kid and it'll be like, God damn it, Billy, I am gonna beat your motherfucking ass. And it's like, oh my God. I never would have heard anything like that from my parents.
Mhm.
And then those are the kind of parents that later on, when the kid swears, they'll go, see, they picked that kind of stuff up in school.
Yeah.
It's like, no, they didn't. Okay, Howard. Yep. Yeah, you hung in there a little longer than usual tonight.
Have a good night, Howard.
6 hours of sleep sounds good. I have not been able to sleep through for the last couple of weeks. I don't know what's going on. I'll be really tired. I'll fall asleep, and I'll wake up like an hour and a half later, and I have to get up and move around and that and lay down again. Of
That's
course, in it, mm,
yeah, about 6 hours is usually what I get.
it doesn't help. Like today, as soon as I got done at Finkel's, I decided to lay down and I napped for like 2 hours. So of course, and that means I'm going to have to be up until 6 a.m. Oh yeah, I miss Kellen. I wish he'd start coming around again.
Oh, he's probably quite busy.
Yeah, and I don't think he's. I think he's been having medical problems,
Mm.
so he kind of has to work through the pain on stuff. And the coolest thing I ever heard about Kellen, though, was he just sort of mentioned it offhand that one time. His son had had a girlfriend, and they broke up like 5 years ago or more.
Mhm.
And that girl would call Kellen on Father's Day. You know, it's like that tells you something about what kind of guy he is. That she was still keeping in touch, and that
Right.
bastard is deceptively intelligent too. You get thrown off by that accent.
I'm a any fuck kind of girl, but I know when to bite my tongue.
I always remember that one time months ago. I think it might have been early on with Chat and Play, but it might have been, still FMAC days, and we were saying about trying to be more R-rated than X-rated and stuff like that. Like
Mhm.
I remember Lupe and Chris were both on the panel, and they were both effing and MFing a lot. And I said, guys, we don't do that here, you know.
Right.
And Chris was fine. He's like, oh, okay. And he was good then. And Lupe like freaked out. Well, this is the way I talk. And I thought, speaking of knowing where you are and stuff, she's a nurse. Does she really
Mhm.
walk around the hospital talking like that?
Maybe under her breath.
Yeah. I always go back to my father because he worked construction most of his life, and when he'd come home on weekends, he didn't talk like that. Even though that was the way the talk was all week. Do you know what the worst word was for my mother the worst swear word or whatever. It was the S word, which is stupid.
Mm-hmm.
It was like, you do not call anybody stupid.
And I don't like the word hate.
Mm, I can see that.
And I think it's because of the kids. I've always told them, when they get mad and they go, well, I hate this or I hate that. It's like, no, you don't hate that person. You may not like what they did, but you do not hate them.
But mom, they said you're a nasty bitch. Oh, well then, you can hate that little motherfucker as much as you want.
No, actually, I just say, well, they're right. you know,
Actually, that'd be more likely for your own kids to be saying.
right.
Isn't it funny how, like with kids, they, well, I hate to say always, because like I've said before, once I got to like college age and stuff and started seeing the way other people live, the always thing, it's like what you think is normal houses went out the window. But how kids will love other kids' parents, you know?
Oh,
And
yeah.
it's like the the kid themselves will be like, my mom is too strict and yeah, 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 yeah. And the other kid will be like, wow, I love your mom. She's so nice, you know.
I will not even say, Nerdy, that my kids are angels. I will I will I will defend them as long as their actions are correct, but if my kids are angels, their halos are held up by devil's horns, and they inherited those from their mother.
Well, the other thing too, it's like kind of famous last words kind of a thing is when someone will go, my son would not lie to me.
Mhm.
Like, boy, are you going to be surprised when you hear the whole story.
Well, the funny thing is the Grahams will not lie to me. Or if
Yeah.
they do lie, they put their hand on their forehead so that I can't see their star shining. Because I always told them that when they lie, there's a star that lights up on their forehead that only adults can see. And they actually believe me. Even the oldest one, who's going to be 13, he will still put his hand on his forehead. And it's like, wow. It's just like today. We he knows he's got to wear shoes when he's riding his bike. Well, the chain broke on the bike and it came back and it split his toe. And I looked at him and I said, "Well, weren't you wearing shoes?" He put his hand on his forehead and he goes, "Yeah, I was wearing my slides." And he knows that those aren't shoes, those are slippers. Yeah, we used to call them flip-flops.
Okay. Yeah. For a while, people would call them tongs, but I think that started getting confused with underwear.
Mhm.
And someone would say, well, if we're going to the beach, I'm just going to wear my tongs. It's like, okay, or thongs rather, not tong,
Thongs.
thong.
Yeah.
Thong is a card game. Yes, I watched. There was a video the other day with a little girl, and the mother was filming her, and she obviously already said, because the mother said, "No, what was that you asked me?" And she's like, "Why do you wear underwear that goes into your butt crack or something like that?" And the mom was like, "I don't know. That's just the way I like them." And the girl goes, "Well, but your peaches will be hanging out."
Yeah, nerdy. My kids know how to conduct themselves. Whether they do or not, that's the question. And the grandkids do with us when we because we have date night every week with them. And if we go out to a restaurant or whatever, it's almost like they've been to etiquette school, but if they go with their mother, they're animals.
That's my nephew who lives next door. He's always getting stuff on his report card. And I love this. I mean, he gets good grades too, but he's still in elementary, and how they put notes on like my notes used to always say things like, Danny would do so much better if he would just apply himself. But
Mhm.
anyway, Toby gets all these things about how he's so helpful with the other kids, and he will help put stuff away, and you know always polite and all this. And Courtney, his mom, says, yeah, that's school Toby.
Mhm.
Got no relation to home Toby whatsoever.
But I think every kid is like that.
Yeah, I always remember a guy came in the library the one time. Well, he'd drop his kids off, you know, then he'd come back an hour or so later. But the one time I said to him, I said, Annie is always just so polite and quiet. And he laughed. And then he looked at me and said, oh, you're being serious. Believe it or not, I didn't used to get into trouble very often in school. But when I did, it would be something big.
Yeah, I can say the same thing. I think really the only thing that really stands out to me was I was and it was in high school. And back in the day, we had smoking sections. Smoking areas, whatever you want to call it. But your parents had to sign a permission slip.
Mm.
I forged my mother's signature. No big deal, right? We've all done that, wrote notes and signed our mom's name. I will never forget, they called my mother in for a conference, and she actually stood up for me because she had broken her arm. And she goes, well, yeah, I did sign that. I had to sign it with my
Well,
left hand because I broke
yeah.
my arm's still in a cast. But boy, when I got home, it no, my dad never found out, thank God. Yeah, well, it was like I knew when I got called to the office what I got in trouble for. I knew I was gonna get hung, And then my mother surprised me by saying, "Yeah, I did sign it, blah, blah, blah." And I'm like, "Oh, Lord, what am I gonna face when I get home?"
I never forged any signatures. My report cards were not horrible enough that I would try to hide them. And I have a specific memory. I can't remember what grade I was in high school. And, like if you weren't in school the day before, you had to take a note in. By the way,
Mhm.
we didn't have any official smoking sections. There was just places people went to smoke, but you get in trouble if you got caught. But anyway, I remember having to take a note in for why I wasn't in school the day before. My mother said, "Well, what should I write?" And I said, "Tell him Dan went fishing with some friends."
Uh,
I thought, why lie about it?
right.
Of course, I didn't think of it until later, although nobody said anything. Kind of wondered about the other three guys going in with notes saying, well, Billy had a stomach ache or whatever, and
Or a
you
sore
just wonder,
throat.
you wonder if the vice president looked at it and went, okay, how come this guy was fishing with friends, and here's three of his friends that all had the flu?
Uh-huh. Now, see, my mom, as I was growing up, I've got 3 little brothers, and I'm the oldest by 2 years. And the one time and I would get home from school first, and then the boys would come in because I was in junior high and they were still in elementary. So I would get home first. My mom met me at the door one day with the belt and said,
Mm.
"Guess whose teacher called today?" And I confessed to anything and everything that I had done, taking nail polish to school and blah, blah, blah. And she looked at me and she goes, "No, it wasn't your teacher. It was your brother's teacher." And I'm like, "Oh, great."
I remember Barb would do that sometimes to my nephew. He'd come home and she'd go, "Well, you want to tell me what it was that happened today?" And he'd always fall for it. He'd go right into, "Well, you don't understand. Billy was doing this, and then this, and then it's like
Uh-huh.
you, you know. On the other hand, my niece that lives next door, Toby's mom, I asked her once a couple of years ago. I said, "What is the worst thing you ever did when you were going to school? Something you hid from your parents?" And I forget exactly what she said, but it was like just like the lamest. You know, she was always such a like goody two shoes and stuff. On the other hand, if you'd ask my sister that question, I'd be like, "Oh, you got to give me some time to
To think
go
about
through
it.
everything." Yeah, see what exactly was the worst thing.
Right.
It's like, could it be the time we stole the car and knocked over a liquor store?
Well, that's like, okay, kids nowadays, and don't get me wrong, that it's fine. I told my kids the same thing. If they're gonna go party and, whatever. Don't get in a car with someone who's been drinking. Don't, that kind of thing. Call me 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning. I don't care. I'll come pick you up.
Yeah.
When I was growing up, oh no, 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock in the morning, we were out in the field praying to God that we made it till the morning. We never did call our parents. It was looking at the moon going, okay, I'm still alive.
That's how I lost my oldest brother, driving home from a high school party.
Oh, yeah, I didn't even think about that. Sorry.
Oh, no, I'm not saying, I mean, I will make jokes about when people will say things and I'll go, like you'll say something about spoiled milk or something, and I'll be like, "You dirty bitch! You
Uh-huh.
know it was spoiled milk that killed my grandmother or something." I never knew any of my grandmothers, but over the years, there's probably like 150 things that I've told people they died from. How dare you bring up zebras? Talking about what a goody two shoes Courtney was. For a few years there in a row, me and her did this thing where we'd go out and look at Christmas lights. And I know for sure that this one year she was in sixth grade because of the teacher she had. But we were driving by this one house, and it was one of the kids she went to school with, and they didn't have their lights on. And I said, when you get to school Monday, you just punch Davy in the nose. And she goes, oh no, I couldn't do that because, geez, I forget the teacher's name now, but it was like, because Mrs. Smith will put my name on the board. That was like the worst thing in the world she could think of, is her name would be written on the board.
Oh, my parents knew I wasn't an angel, but like you, I never got caught. And the only person who would snitch me out, obviously, is myself.
Yeah.
No, I take that back. I did get caught one time. I was 16. I had a job, and somebody was having a party or whatever. And I told my dad that I was going to work until closing, which meant I would get home around 11:30. Apparently, my dad knew my schedule because at 8 o'clock he showed up as I was getting ready to walk out to go to this party. And I'm like, really? And so he followed me home.
Just be glad that he didn't like park up the street or something and follow you to the party and then embarrass you in front of everybody.
Oh, the bad part is that everybody was in the parking lot waiting on me.
No.
So I don't know if my brothers found out about it and told them, because we lived in a small town, and
Yeah.
you know, the my one brother would have been in 8th grade, and that, 8th grade, ninth grade, they tend to, you know, well, if you're in 8th grade, you're almost in ninth grade. It was kind of a shared experience for being a freshman. You had half a freshman and then a freshman. So I think that's what happened is my one brother found out about it, and he told.
Dirty snitch.
Well, he probably told because he got caught.
Yeah.
And it was always, "Well, how come she can do it and I can't?"
I think I might have shared this the other day. I'm not sure. Stop me if I did. I think I saw it on Facebook. Somebody, it was sort of like that typical thing of, well, how come they're allowed to? How come? And it was like my, it was like the mother saying, my oldest child said, well, why is she allowed to wear makeup? She's only 13. I had to wait till I was 16 and still hide it from dad. And the mother said, well, parents tend to be a little stricter on the firstborn. Plus, you're a boy. That's one of those age-old things in every
Mhm.
family. It's like, how come they're allowed to do it, and I had to wait till I was older, and then you'd have the younger ones going, how come he gets to go there and I can't go there? You know, it's like goes both ways.
Oh, yeah, I get it all the time from my daughter because there's 10 years difference between her and my son, and she's older, and you would swear to God, listening to her, that she was, you know, um, only allowed to go to and from school, and, when she got into school, she was chained to the wall, so she couldn't do anything and was only allowed to do chores and her homework. But my son, he could go to the football games, he could do go hang out with friends, he could whatever, and, it's like, you were allowed to do that, you just chose not to, so don't say it's because I was, strict.
And see,
She
this
was
is
the type of kid who would actually do shit to get in trouble, to get grounded, so that way she would have an excuse to tell everybody, "Well, I can't do that because I'm grounded."
the reason number 27 why it was probably good I wasn't a parent because stuff like that I'd be tempted when it's like, well, how come George is allowed to go to the football game? I'd go, well, we like him better.
Mhm.
That's that's the kind of thing that would get me in trouble over the years because I would sometimes say things that I think are obviously being funny,
Mhm.
and other people don't take it that way. You know, something like, you know, you'd meet somebody that has, three sons or whatever, and go, "Oh yeah, your mom told me about you. You're the one she doesn't like that much." And you'd think they would know you're joking, but yeah, nope. Obvious to me, but not to thee.
Right. Anyway, it is that time for me.
Mid of night. Well, this
Yeah.
was fun.
Yeah, considering you didn't have it planned.
Yeah. Nerdy's always bugging me about going live, so she'll be happy for a while.
Uh, Well, maybe we'll see Nerdy on Monday.
Do we have to?
Well, I don't know. It's if her internet can handle it.
Oh, that's right. It's the whole being able to get on StreamYard thing.
Yeah.
You wouldn't think it would be that much more of a resource hog than YouTube is, but I guess it is.
Oh, yeah. StreamYard is very much so a resource hog.
Anyway, we will see you later. Thanks for sticking with us, Nerdy.
Have a good night.
And I am going to hit the button. I should have saved a joke to go off with. But okay, I will say this, Nerdy. I remember when Roseanne's show first came on. One of the things I liked about it, I think it was the very first episode. And the little boy comes in and he says, Mom, who's your favorite? And she goes, you are. Just right up. And I thought, you could just tell that no matter what kid came in, she'd have said the same thing. And the kid walks off happy. And anyway, and after a couple of seasons, the show got crappy. But that's beside the point. I'm hitting the button now.
And that's the way it is.